But I appreciate the commitment. One day indeed. We are back. We're straight onto the Rift, no less. I will throw to this one quickly because we had this conversation. Talked about Twisted Fate, talked to me about it being a first pick, and talked to me how it works in this comp.
This draft from VDXL is super LCK and it's super sandbox as far as I remember. We get a couple of LGL cards to throw out there. I love me a player called Aria, moved from the LGL over to KT Rolster. They played a game where they had that TF let finally through to them, and it was responded to by Closers Aurelia. There was a Diana in there too. And now GDXL have this ability to play hard through mid. You're going to be hyper clearing with the Diana, pushing lanes from top and mid. You get to play around this mid lane, isolate the TF, stop him from getting nearly as much impact on the map as he would like to. I like this response from GDXL. Question is, can you get enough of that out before the TF starts really impacting bot lane?
And I believe that is a 7th unique pick for M&S, as was kind of been talked about before. It's a little nuts how wide this guy's champion pool is. And it's not even like he's picking up champions then looking okay on them.
Oh, he's
picking champions and then demolishing people on them. And that's really remarkable to do that across so many different champions, across so many different teams. And JDXL have looked pretty dominating. And again, if they win today, they're tied for first.
They are, and we have the rock, paper, scissors between JDXL, Bifrost, and X7 for the top of the table. M&S has 16 solo kills, you know. He got 5 of them in his last game versus Singularity, had 11 before that, but might be a bit of a duo kill opportunity coming in. Braum level 1, very strong.
It is indeed. Leona's isn't bad either, though, and actually, Zamalek doing a fairly decent job trading forwards. Flash forward, they really want this. Crispberg actually has to burn the cleanse, but that now is flash down from Kikis, but they will get rid of the cleanse, and that does mean potential kill combos if Dan comes down here. So we started on the bot side, so it actually won't be clearing towards the lane yet.
I seem to remember the last time I talked about a Diana not being able to gank very early, as I'll just briefly mention it now. They actually managed to get some really good abilities to impact some of those lanes. With Kikis blowing that cleanse, like you're saying, not having a heal in that lane, there is the opportunity for the Zenith Blade into the Q, level 2, very strong for this champion, of course, and you didn't burn the Ignite either. Lots of value to come through. It means that the Cephalios Braum, particularly typically a very passive lane, might be broken open here.
And I think all eyes, as we've talked about it before, will be edging towards this mid lane, primarily to see, can Crest get out on the map and start affecting these side lanes? He's got the setup in both, but he needs to make it work. The last time we saw the Twisted Fate, it took a while for the likes of Tempt, who was on it, of course, to get things rolling. On the other side, you're looking at this, like, Cries on the Graves does a lot of damage. M&S on Aurelia, you got down on this Diana. If these guys hit 2 items, like, uncontested or ahead, I feel very sad for the side of Astralis unless Carlson pulls off a miracle counter-engage.
Okay, so level 2 is hit by these bot lanes, not seeing the all-in right here. Diana hoovers up the jungle and Taxa on the Lee Sin just behind them. But the thing about, this Lee Sin is that while you do kind of want to get up in the enemy jungler's face, because the camps are all gone, much akin to something like an Olaf, you rarely get a chance to actually interact with that Diana. You rarely get a chance to stop them before they get to their point of power. So the Astralis do get that bot lane shove, maybe have the ability to get some deep wards in as well as getting something like, don't you dare take that, Crispberg lands the Q.
What about it?
I would do that if I was the Aphelios, but
of course you would.
Wouldn't necessarily.
There's a reason I don't duo with you.
True. Send Archer on my condolences after yesterday's games.
That's a conversation for another time, as Dan is just hopping around to see whether might be an angle here on the Carlson, but unlikely right now.
Because obviously Set needs to have some positioning on the minions, get himself between you and them, and then maybe you can bait that in. Not to be the case in there, though. Just securing the push early, potentially if Lee Sin had gone from bot to top, it would have led to some kind of irregularity, but of course, with trading scuttles, unlikely to happen. So, even early game, not really much that happening.
I will call out something here, and this is something I want to bring up, and I'm hoping Tax proves me wrong, because the last time I saw his Lee Sin, it was actually a little bit unremarkable. Didn't get that much done, actually, particularly in the mid-game where he needed to be a playmaker.
Apart from that one crazy play.
Absolutely, aside from the one absolutely crazy play. And of course, the guy's got mechanics, he's comfortable on the champion, but
boy's got hands.
Astralis have struggled to make plays stick in the mid-game. They've kind of defaulted to just turning up around objectives and bashing heads against each other. It was better last week, and particularly on that second day, but it still wasn't enough. They are 0-4, and now against one of the top teams in the league, they do need to be stepping up.
Stuns.
And that's not a bad little start there. A fair little trade onto Kikis. Of course, down the flash could have maybe been a spot bother, but Leona has Eclipse, and that makes her quite difficult to kill. Eclipsed by the ability, not the item, by the way.
That Eclipse about to be bound by a fellow son that grabbed him. But again, if we're going to go back to Astralis, because we talk so much about XL, we talk so much about X7, let's go back to Astralis and say, you know, much like they were talking about on the desk, saying, oh, maybe you do want this bigger form of engage. But actually, the last time they had that engage last week, when they had stuff like the Vex, and they had stuff like the Camille, and they had the real go buttons, they struggle to use them efficiently. They struggle to actually pull them at the right moment, as Zamalek is having the go button pulled on him by the minions, it looks like, as he's going down to sub 100 HP.
Yeah, I think he
and
you're
very glad there's not an ignite in that lane.
Yeah, there's a flash ignite angle there, very close too. Does manage to back out now, down a little CS, but that's kind of part and parcel of being traded into a little early on. And both junglers understandably playing more towards their priority lanes, as M&S and Cries definitely have the shove early on, but that's not necessarily a surprise considering the matchups. And important to note, the alarm must be rung because level 6s have been hit, and that means there is a Destiny/gate available for Crest to get out on top of the map.
You see a man with a hat standing underneath the street light, like he's just standing there menacingly, flicks a gold card.
God, exactly.
That means that if there were to be an angle onto this dragon from DataXL, it would of course be very dangerous to do so, but M&S had already recalled, didn't have to use the teleport. Besides, this is a battle not yet to be fought. Maybe next time.
Worth the attempt.
Tries his luck, and in fairness, Zamalek has had one hell of a split so far. Two, if we're stopping in with so many of these players, I remember obviously when we were talking about X7, we talked about, no, it's a great bot lane and not actually being outshone by the rest of the members on his team. Zamalek's actually in a very similar position too. M&S has been... okay, best player is quite a nebulous term because I think the peak of so many of these players
is very high.
It's very, very high, but he's been the most valuable player as M&S. But you look at someone like Zamalek, you look at his Varus games, you look at his huge quadra kills, this player has not been outshone particularly in his own right either. Now, he's not going to be on the hard carry duty, but having the ability to tag onto the Leona, this bot lane has to be doing a lot of work in the pick potential.
I saw this guy on Gale Force Jhin the other week, though, and he did absolutely do some carrying them with a little bit of assistance from Dan's volley bag getting things rolling.
Zamalek.
Yeah, so he was doing just fine on the champion, so I'm quite excited to see him back on it. Of course, a lot of the volatility, shall we say, definitely on other parts of the map, but that's what people like TF thrive in. There we go. I nearly thought I'd confuse my Fs and THs. I'm not quite London enough to be conflating those two. Phonics, that's the term, if I remember correctly.
Are they in like audio or stereo?
I mean, I was always a fan of Stereophonics. We've gone on a lot of very unusual tangents from tangents there, which is quite impressive, but par for the course for us, really. And Taxa does manage to score his blue buff.
You know what isn't par for the course? Cull on Aurelia.
No.
Now, I would never go this on Aurelia, I have to say myself, but if you think about, because you were talking about volatility, right? And that's been the real thing which has been lacking from Astralis, which is good and bad, but they don't really have these volatile plays which are going to flip this way, flip that way, and flip the other way. If you're going to have a Cull coming into a quicker 2-item spike, quicker 1-item spike even as well, if it's going to be, if you're going to be farming up as well as M&S is, that buys you, again, an extra route into the game and a point of power where TF is looking for his first impact on the game.
Zamalek does manage to get out of that river bush, and importantly, the Herald has spawned. Dan is on it, and Chrisberg hasn't really managed to get much of a shove in bot lane, so I'm not sure the standard trade of Herald for plate's going to happen. In fact, he's slow pushing.
Yeah, he wants to try. This could be quite an interesting play from Astralis because you can see that they're starting to slowly build this up, wait for the second wave to come in. Tax is coming down. Zamalek spots him. He knows that there is a dive potential, but there's no one here to help him. Where's the TF? This is danger now.
There's the Twisted Fate, and they're not going just for the place because they're looking for the dive. Kick into the wall, into the Moonlight Vigil, into first blood for Crest. Volatility secured.
And I hate to say kind of like, I told you so, but that should have been fairly obvious when you see the fellows not hyper-pushing the wave, not hitting all of those minions. Zamalek just caught out at the wrong place at the wrong time, maybe didn't see Taxa early enough. He was already under the tower by that point. At least in the mid lane for JDXL, they respond with a lot of plates. Diana, very good at killing that with the passive. Aurelia not too shabby at it either, so some gold traded back. Jhin, Zamalek, this player who has done so well for his team so far, though, is the not the beneficiary, the other one, the bad one.
The loser fishery. There's probably a word for it. The loser fishery. Here we go.
This is getting...
we'll call it a neologism. A new word invented here on the cast. And that has cost Zamalek a lot of CS, that play. That's what that's done. It's gotten Chrisberg an advantage in terms of discrepancies there. But on the other hand, M&S got funneled a lot of gold. Dan on the Diana, the carry jungler that wants some items, got funneled a lot of gold, and that's a dangerous trade to make.
Maybe we should make a tradition out of you teaching me a new word or making a new word on cast, because if we're going to go talk about traditions and setting that stuff up, it's a pretty traditional set of leads for both these teams.
Oh, boo. That is
you
your...
You give me like 10 seconds to think, I'll think of it. So Chrisberg gets some resources, gets a plate or two down in that bot lane, and then M&S gets to share some of that gold with his jungler as well. So now both of these players who are used to playing from ahead, used to playing with that lead, now find themselves in a similar position. Difference is, though, as you were talking about with M&S, doesn't matter what you put him on, he has an impact on the game. Chrisberg struggles to do the same. Does have decent DPM, has a lot of farm post 15 minutes. I believe he's actually the highest AD carry, well, the highest player in the whole league, actually.
I believe he is, yes.
At being funneled resources after laning phase. That's CS post 15 minutes. Very high on that regard. He's got some resource a little earlier than that at this point. But yeah, he needs to find a way for this Astralis team to start doing that damage in relevant points to win team fights, because, you know, you're on the FLS, you have the champion to do it, and you're actually in a good position to do it as well in this comp.
Well, those plates into Dan's back pocket has earned him the first mythic of the game, got himself a proto belt in, so he is ready and willing to pull the trigger when necessary. And we've only seen the one kill thus far, and honestly the goal is very close, only about 600 or so. That is in Astralis' favor, and they'll be pretty happy about that, but I do need to see another one of these TF plays relatively soon, because if it comes in even, things get a bit scary, and scary enough that, you know, we couldn't show that on screen. In fact, it would be too graphic for all involved.
I was about to say, like, oh, you got to get ready for the serotonin burst of the cold getting popped, and you see that gold just pop up, and I'm like, that is not serotonin, that's the fear one. That's the other one. That's the adrenaline burst.
Fight or flight response to the computer toast
flight. Alien isolation all over again.
There's no Nocturne in this game, but apparently in the computer system, so there you go. So, M&S, 6 CS off popping that cult. Ocean Drake is live. Astralis did secure the first one. They secured the first Herald.
Yes,
looking to try to secure the third one, yes.
Can you stack 2? And at that point, actually, you get 2, you start to threaten towards a soul point, and you can start forcing JDXL to come to you. Use your TF to affect those side lanes, and they have stacked up that 2. Okay, that's the start point. You know, you have to start
boy, Cress is in so much trouble. Solar Flare. In comes the Vanguard's Edge, and M&S just picks it up like that.
I mean, what did the desk say? You slip up once in this TF, there is no margin of error. There, your HP bar just completely goes. Turret is gone, and just when you think Astralis have set themselves up to smoothly slide into that mid game, have an ability to play out the map, they're just not ready for the tempo shift. Gear shifts upwards JDXL, kick it off the line.
And suddenly the gold is right in JDXL's favor, and they've got the neutral objectives of Astralis. They secured another Drake, but it's a transition back when they think the play is over that Kikis and M&S were waiting.
And we've heard about this in a lot of interviews as well, right? I think it was with Veneer, we were talking to Quicks. They're saying these teams in the NLC they punish mistakes so hard. Zamulek getting punished for another mistake. They're not going to lead to his life being forfeit, but it might be the turret, might be the wave as well. Picks up one with the W. But as we were saying, you know, these teams are so ready to pull the trigger when these mistakes are made. Astralis fall prey to it once again in this league.
Okay, well, Wendell will at least... Well, not Wendell's, Chrisberg. But I say Wendell's the carry here on the Braum. You should really know this.
Have you ever seen Lethal Tempo Braum?
I've just
Dangerous, I tell you.
I've just seen, obviously, Ruin King games where you build damage Braum. It's great. But Dan was thinking about that. He was just hanging around to see whether someone might dive too far forwards. And, of course, Diana plus Irelia is pretty dangerous.
I mean, that would have been a very me kind of play. I'm like, yes, I'm going to queue through the wave into all summoners bot lane with double ults. That would have been...
Look, your jungler's there. You just have to missing ping them when they can't follow up off the miles you've dived forwards.
My friend, my brother, I would do that if the jungler was or wasn't there, regardless of whether it's their fault or not.
The number of times you've called me off Gromp when, like, my man, I am a long way away.
Oh, no, that's because Gromp's a bro. Gromp's a friend. We got way back. We went to secondary school together.
No, you didn't.
You can't prove that.
You
don't
didn't
have a
start
yearbook.
playing League till after secondary school.
Damn, you're right. Wow. Time really flies.
Time flies. There you go.
Flies.
All right.
Crazy.
All right, JDXL still in the gold lead, still about 2,000 gold up. You've got about 3 minutes until the Dragon. It is a Hex Rift. You can see it by the gates all over your map. And that does mean for some potentially even more flank angles for various teams, and Irelia turning up behind you sounds pretty awful. TF with even more mobility also sounds pretty rough.
Yeah, and what I love from JDXL, it's quite simple versus TF, of course, but they're just shadowing well, right? You know that M&S is probably not going to be under any threat when he's got the Merc Treads, first item, flash, blah, blah, blah. He is safe at this point, so whenever you are pushing in the wave, you need to make sure you've synced up the waves at the right point, that you're not losing stupid farm across the map. You get to the objectives at the right point, but you're shadowing everyone from an opportunistic TF ult. He has an exhaust, he has an ignite, he He's popped the ult. He's going for a fight.
Zamalek has to flash over the wall, but Chrisberg still got vision into that moonlight visual, and Chrisberg secures the kill onto Zamalek. I think his leading KDA might be being shredded a little here. 2 deaths and nothing else to his name right now.
Well, it might have been rhyming. Second verse, same as the first. Put him in a bind and put Zamalek in a hearse. Goes down 0 and 2. Hasn't completed their mythic, and Zamalek, as much as we've called them kind of like this secondary carry of JDXL, really struggling to get access to any resources. Chrisberg, as we've known him to be so far, again, mention it again, has found the resources yet again, and he's having a much easier time between these 2 AD carries.
And honestly, that is... Kikis has been roaming around a lot, but you leave the AD carry by themselves versus the Braum, the Aphelios, and the TF porting in. Not a lot you get to do there without Flash or Gale Force, so he dies again. I believe that didn't secure mid lane tower, so there's at least that. And JDXL still in that gold lead, but I appreciate Astralis still finding those important picks. But I need to see some more, because it stays like this, it gets a bit tricky.
It does get a bit tricky, but I mean, at least keeping Zamalek out of the game on the Jhin so far, that's a good step. And
oh yeah.
I have to say, I didn't necessarily buy into the Elite Four mentality, all of it. In the first week, maybe, as Kikis is... let's see if we're going to get ourselves a fight. We are going to, of course we are.
There's the Moonfall with the Lunar Rush coming through into that Vanguard's edge. M&S dancing around with the passive stack. Taxa gets down, though, so that's 1 back. But remember, the stacks on Aurelia still so high. The ward hop away into the collateral damage. Not quite enough. Look who's teleported in, though. It's Carlson, who's feeling a little bit worse for wear here. And I think he might be offering a gift wrap kill over to Kryze, but actually he's just fast enough with the knuckle down to get out of there.
And you know, they can interrupt my spiel about not necessarily believing in Elite Fours. Week 1 made it easy, blurred a little bit after that, but Astralis are very much willing to go that extra mile to put that narrative back on the table, put themselves back onto the left-hand side of the table, get themselves back into the equation, because they've been stripped out of it in the last couple of weeks. And it would just have to be with the return of Goldborg, wouldn't it?
It would. Goldborg returns. It's only Astralis. Proactive in the early game. They've got themselves a second Herald. They've got themselves 2 Drakes. They've got 5 seconds until a Hex, the Hex Tech Drake spawns, and they're looking to get themselves to Soul Point. JDXL are around, though. But M&S down that Vanguard's edge. Not quite as dangerous as he might be otherwise.
No, but there are some stopwatches to play around. Dan doesn't have the ult either. JDXL are not firing on all cylinders, but do they have enough left in the tank?
So many ultimates down. That's an exhaust off. But look at the curtains being called. Kryze into the back here. It's secured. That is Soul Point. Infernum comes through, lands onto 3. TF porting, but he's into a very deep backline. M&S hops forward, out range of that concussive blow. Dan goes down before the Moonfall comes through. Kick is solo, so is Kryze. It's a double for Chrisberg. It's redemption for this man. Zamalek is dead as well as Carlson gets on top of him. And Astralis just wipe the fight.
What has this squad been since week 1? What has happened to them? They come back, and they come back storming into the Rift. We knew that as soon as those first 2 dragons came up, Astralis would be fighting around those objectives. Kryze has the ult. Taxa is safe for now.
And that was with M&S down the Vanguard's edge. Dan just got the Moonfall in, but it was just too late. Doesn't complete. And ult advantages. They come out with the drag. They're at Soul Point. They come up with the kill lead. The gold is pretty much even. But I wonder whether JDXL realized that.
I mean, they were fighting without so much of their arsenal, their inventory available to them. Yes, M&S kind of dealing with Cress, and you know that Aurelia wants to go for these isolated plays, split up the team, get that extra HP regen, but the rest of the team just can't hold steady. They just cannot deal with the brunt of the damage, of the gold, of these levels reached at this point. Astralis rip them apart.
They do, and now they're at a point where this Aphelios 3-0 and 3, Chrisberg, who was on the Aphelios last week, and overstepped so often, went too deep, too far, got punished. This time, this high resource AD carry is doing so much better, is in such a position to carry.
How vindicating is that? And also for Cress as well. Cress is making big plays. Yes, they get that 1 pick off. You know that's the nature of this matchup, though, so you can't hold it too much against them. But Cress, Chrisberg, Carlson kind of continuing his own form. He's been the real standout in the dark weeks for Astralis. But, you know, JDXL, one of these kind of crazy strong teams, the top 2 that we saw coming into this split, we expected to be so strong. Astralis are not looking cowed at all by them.
No, they are not. Now they're looking to secure a 3rd tower for themselves. Cress is here with Taxa to support. And again, a much better game from the jungler of Astralis. Looking to be involved, doing significantly more work on this champion. M&S, though, up a lot of CS, gets another tower to their name. Aurelia not not far off that second item, and when the Immortal Shield Bow is through, it gets a lot scarier. And they're going to try and find the angle in mid lane. Chrisberg is going to get behind Wendell. Crest teleports in with the Destiny Gate as well. Kick is so low and goes down. He might be too deep. Kreis is here. Has to burn the collateral damage to get outside of the Glacial Fissure. And they do get the kill and get out. Overdive from JDXL.
Okay, but there's the Ghost pop. They're going for gold cards. Can they get a follow-up? There comes the Everfrost.
And that's M&S actually teleporting in, thinking they might chase too deep, and that's a teleport down as well.
Okay, maybe I got a bit hyped with that, but whenever I see a TF with Ghost, I'm like, oh heck, he's going to be running down for a second gold card now, isn't he? Doesn't end up landing, doesn't end up sticking around long enough for that to come back off of cooldown, but once again, Astralis taking the fight that's given to them this time. This is, of course, they've been making a lot of their own plays, so credit to them for that. It's something that we've criticized them for in the past. Only right to call it out when we see it. But JDXL in this case, I mean, you're diving onto, again, like this full resource, full cooldown bot lane, and it's great weapons to peel back with as well. It's the Crescendum, it's the Calibrum. I love that weapon combo. You don't always need the Severum to stack up Chakrams. Sometimes you just need to play around that extended range. Chrisberg is hardly touched, and I mean, yeah, Astralis kind of been handed the plates to them, but let's not forget that they've been making a lot of them too.
And it's also important that with a minute and a half left to this sole fight, Astralis have got some second items in and complete, and while M&S has just completed his second item, Zamalek a long way off his, and that could be a serious problem. Maybe JDXL have found the turnaround fight, though. That will be Wendell left alone, flashing away. Tax are pretty low as well. Kreis gets stunned, but Wendell, even with the use of that the Lock of the Iron Solari will still fall down. M&S picks up a second kill to his name. Still has a Vanguard's Edge, and actually JDXL just thinking about returning to the Baron base.
Okay, because you don't have the Braum, you suddenly don't have the same degree of safety for Chrisberg. Kikis is on the flank, has flash, has ultimate, and isn't spotted just yet. Carlson, I don't know if he saw him. I don't think they saw him.
That's the Zenith Blade. They're going to get the root afterwards, but the damage afterwards so big, it's a shutdown onto Taxa. Carlson tries to get out, but it's too dead already. And look at M&S doing so much work. Carlson is still alive, and we've got ourselves a little bit of lag on the server. Who's dead? Who knows? Gry's got a double. Crest is trying to run away, and it's freeze frame, stop motion. It's too aggressive to show on air, and JDXL I have no idea. We're back in time. We'll see it again, DJ. All right, let's try this one more time. I'll warm my vocal cords up and just watch the intended engage. The Vanguard's Edge did go wide, and that will be the shutdown attacks, and Carlson goes through, and then what happens from here? How does it play out? Carlson gets some damage, but it's Crest alone, and he's on a utility at TF. There's just no way to keep him alive, and Crest surely gets run down at the end of it, especially after the Lunar Rush.
Oh, he has to blow the stopwatch, has to blow everything, and JDXL, just like I was saying, they're choosing the wrong fights. They're trying to go into the Aphelios Braum. Well, they got the Braum. You don't need to worry about the Braum at that point. You see that all off of cooldown for that Braum? If that had been in that fight, that is a complete turnaround. The Aphelios is probably not going to be shut down in the same way. That fight was so nice from JDXL. We had to see it twice.
Look, all I'm saying is I'm a piano player. I've heard it enough times to say, play it again, Sam. I'll play it again if I have the damn choice. I tell you, you hear that phrase a lot.
So you're saying that if I wasn't a guitarist and I was a pianist, I would have been a play-by-play instead of a color? What's the relationship between instruments and casting roles?
I have elegance in phrase and elegance in musical talent as well. Trombones are really interesting.
Okay, sure.
We're going this way. Go somewhere with this. I'm not quite sure, but like just they're very entertaining instruments because you could do some like.
I thought you actually had trivia.
I was thinking about it and realized I didn't have any off the top of my head. I started that sentence assuming
the mental draw for trombone. No, that's an empty draw. Put it back.
But it's just the way you could sort of do the little sort of slides down on the brass with the.
Just like Astralis did in that fight.
Basically, that is. M&S now 3-2-3. I am interested to see what that third item is going to be. Looking potentially like a hull breaker. What's that?
From M&S, I mean, he's got the Rage Knife, but then if you're building through into the Rage Blade, of course, that builds out of a Crit Cloak as well. So that's actually not going to be through that. This could end up being some. I mean, I doubt it is going to be a hull breaker from that. It could also be something like a Death Dance.
Oh, that would make a lot more sense. There you go. There we go. That would actually, that's exactly probably what it is.
It's going to change in the next couple of patches. I mean. With the Caulfields, you know, it builds into so many random items. It could be actually something with like, oh, you forgot about Atmas and Palers, which is just not in the game anymore.
You can see why I'm the play-by-play there, because I had no idea what item I was going into for the longest time. Took me a moment. Zamalek, 0-3 and 4, still struggling a little bit in this game. Chrisberg, 3-4-1 and 4, still pretty strong, but honestly, Astralis still in this game. Still proactive, but it's another one of those mid-game moments where it got a little bit dicey. JDXL stopped the Soul after the end of that fight. They didn't get the Baron, though, so Astralis still in an okay position, but they can't allow another one of those fights to happen.
One of the problems is, even if you do get something like a Baron from Astralis, if you end up trading that for another Dragon or something, like, the problem with this kind of comp is that you can always get engaged on if you're grouping up to Siege. The Leona, the everything flying in from the sides. It's very dangerous to group up with Astralis if you don't have full vision, and if you're pushing too hard, that can get very dangerous. So watch for the objective trades, because I feel like Dragon for Baron favors JDXL in some ways in regards to the team comps and how it might play out after that objective is taken.
Just look at the vision control. So many control wards.
And again,
basically,
Astralis need to play with vision. They cannot allow to get flanked behind the Braum shield.
And all the while, M&S is in that side lane. He is just a complete... I don't think there's anybody who wants to duel him in a side lane right now. He is so strong. He kicks over the back. There's a teleport into the Destiny Gate. The curtains are called. We've made this reference before, but I think this might be the last act, possibly. Over the wall go Wendell and Carlson. The collateral damage doesn't quite secure Tax, who's still alive, and the fight continues. Look at Chrisberg. Severum, Crescendum, and so many chakrams secure the double. M&S into the backline. So tanky. That's the explosion onto the Aphelios, and this is the problem. If you don't keep your Aphelios alive, the damage afterwards is so damn high. It looks like a 2 for 2, or 3 for 3 rather in the end, but the HP bars very much in JDXL's favor.
Absolute bloodbath. Yes, you do have the Death Dance completed for M&S before he comes into that. I think he did before the teleport. Actually, don't quote me on that, but what was the really important thing? M&S doesn't land the ult. It is a clump, but it somehow goes wide with a number of flashes and mobility spells used. We see, not for the first time this game, JDXL finding a way to corral the entirety of Astralis into this kind of choke. Try and find a way to get their multi-man AoE brawlers into the thick of things and close that distance. This time it's not quite clean enough.
They didn't quite kill Chrisberg fast enough, and he managed to get 2 kills before going down, but after that, you've then got a rampaging Graves and Aurelia to deal with, and no damage to finish them off.
Well, I mean, credit to Carlson, actually. Carlson's been playing Disruption fairly well in these fights so far, because Chrisberg has teeth, but you can still give a good sucker punch to knock him out. Carlson is someone that wants to get in there and just buy that extra time, but if you... The thing is, once you go in as that set, if you end up taking a brunt of that damage, you press that W, you cannot be stood on that side of the fight. That is potentially 2 or 3 people left limping after that point. So I'm really looking once again for the next couple of fights onwards for Carlson to be that bulwark to buy the Aphelios that space he needs.
Okay, and once again, we have to turn up to that top left-hand corner of your screen. I was
going to turn down for what, but sure.
Okay. We've got a soul fight coming up, and I think some HP bars might be getting low as we're all dancing in the club. I mean, the river, and yes, I made an Apple Bottom Jeans reference, and I'm not apologizing.
You're so good at this. I knew I kept you around for a reason.
That's a bad reason to keep me around, but considering how poor my puns are as M&S. So threatening foshes the flash away. Chrisberg down that summoner spell, and these ends of the line beginning to sting. Has to Gale Force out of the Solar Flare. Curtains are called. Wendell puts up the door, and that will prevent too much damage coming through.
TF ults.
TFO's ulting now. Dragon live in 10 seconds and some big ultimates down. Bot laners from Zamalek and JDXL down their ultimates, but Chrisberg down the flash, down the cleanse. Could be a target still. Watch M&S over the back, he lands a Vanguard's edge. It's all gonna be in trouble! He gets to the backside, so much damage come through! Kryze is there! And of course it was M&S who starts it all up. But look at Chrisberg, he's trying to get more, but he's just fallen down. Crest flashing away, will not survive Zamalek aside from a stopwatch, but it's just not gonna be enough. It's a triple for Kryze. They'll pick up the Dragon and the rest of the team will move over to Baron. An ace for JDXL.
How many times do we have to say it? Mistakes are punished in the NLC, and mistakes were made. All it takes is one lapse of vision. Yet again, it's not the Leona this time, it's M&S. It's the Aurelia who's managed to find their way into the backline every goddamn fight. Dragon goes down to the JDXL, they stop the Soul once more, they break open this Baron, they're going to break open the map with it.
And you might burn everything to kill M&S, to kill Dan, but the problem is
hard to kill.
You're now looking at the Graves as well at 3 items, who even if you burned everything, they've done enough damage, and they get to murder who remains. We'll see it in the replay. M&S finds the perfect angle.
And again, Astralis understand they want to claim that territory, but I mean, Carlson walks up, the Vanguard's head pops on them. Doesn't matter that the initial mark is not on Chrisberg, but credit to Astralis' talent. I mean, you see them very quickly react with the Brawl Mold, very quickly react with the shield, try and buy a second, 2 seconds, buy enough time for the ult, and the ult does go off, but it's not enough at that point. Zamalek, though he's been struggling for so much of this game, is the AD carry left alive at the end of it, and that's what counts.
It is, and Chris Berg has finally got himself a hold of a stopwatch because this is a hard game to stay alive. If you don't catch everybody in your disengage, if someone gets to follow up, it is very, very hard to stay alive. In this one is M&S might be in trouble here, though. That's a 4-man gank. He gets Showstopper, trying to stay alive best he can. There's a lot of damage. Stopwatch buys time, trying to wait out the Showstopper, not Showstopper, the Haymaker, and he does fall down. But because 4 members went to take out the Aurelia, the inhibitor in mid lane does falter.
So, okay, they find one piece of this machine of JDXL crawling through their base, and they break it apart. Okay, that's one thing down. It gets them some gold on the table. And maybe you think, actually, if they had gone to respond to that 4-man unit, maybe everything starts falling apart as the house of cards falls down. M&S, very important for that side lane pressure, isn't probably going to be too dismayed by that death, buys a lot of time with it. Maybe the stopwatch was a bit of an investment too far, but as you said, objective taken for JDXL, they return to the map.
Long time now until objectives come up, and Astralis, it's another mid game. It's another late game where some of these plays go wrong.
So much. This is night and day compared to the last weeks.
And in fairness, it's absolutely true. It looks better again. They got to Soul Point, but the problem is, I feel like they didn't get quite enough early. And actually, the fact that JDXL still had a bit of a gold lead, still managed to get some dangerous items onto a Graves, who is now 4 items, by the way, and Aurelia, who is 3 items and still terrifying at the back end. And yes, Zamalek was pushed behind, but look at the rest of the map. And they can still win this game. They can still pull it out, but they are now down 8,000 gold. And it's looking pretty hard to do.
You're right to mention that, in fairness, of course you are. I mean, it is worth mentioning, of course, this is a much better look from Astralis than we've seen since week 1, but they didn't accelerate the map with the TF. They actually had to play very defensively. JDXL's kind of LCK answer to it, working out fine, as Taxa trying to get in, and TF entering the fight.
Crisis here, they get the kickback onto down, but of course he's got a Zhonya's, and look how much damage goes on to that Lee Sin.
Oh, here's M&S.
And it's straight into a Moonfall. Yes, it's some damage back from Crispo, but he's in the middle of everybody. He just goes straight down to a Gale Force coming through, and the wind knocks him straight over. There is no more weapon of the faithful. He falls down, and Guldborg somewhere out there in the green room, it must be in despair. It's another ace for 1, and JDXL, with the Baron remaining, can just shove down and get at least another inhibitor. In fact, they're just looking to end it.
They gave us some hope. They gave us something to try and follow through, pick up that thread, follow it through to some kind of victory. It's snipped off, no Gwen involved. JDXL taking the win.
And Chris Berg, from such a good early game to so much damage, but they just couldn't keep the Aphelios alive. And JDXL tie for first. 3-way tie, baby.
Reach for the sky, throw those weapons down.